Elixir. Introduction to Mix. In this guide, we will learn how to build a complete Elixir application with its own supervision tree, configuration, tests, and more. The application works as a distributed key value store. We're going to organize key value pairs into buckets and distribute those buckets across multiple nodes. We will also build a simple client that allows us to connect to any of those nodes and send requests such as create shopping, put shopping milk 1, put shopping eggs 3, get shopping milk, delete shopping eggs. In order to build our key value application, we are going to use three main tools: OTP, Open Telecom Platform. OTP is a set of libraries that ships with Erlang. Erlang developers use OTP to build robust, fault-tolerant applications. In this chapter, we will explore how many aspects from OTP integrate with Elixir, including supervision trees, event managers, and more. Mix is a build tool that ships with Elixir that provides tasks for creating, compiling, testing your application, managing its dependencies, and much more. XUnit is a test unit-based framework that ships with Elixir. In this chapter, we will create our first project using Mix and explore different features in OTP, Mix, and XUnit as we go. This is for Elixir 1.6.1 or later. Our first project. When you install Elixir, besides getting the Elixir C, and IEX executables, you also get an executable Elixir script named Mix. Let's create our first project by invoking mix_new from the command line. We'll pass the project name as the argument, kv in this case, and tell Mix that our main module should be the all uppercase kv instead of the default, which would have been capital KV. Mix new kv module flag capital K capital V. Mix will create a directory named lowercase kv with a few files in it: readme, .formatter, .gignore, mix.exs, config/config.exs, lib/kv.ex, test/helper, or test/test/helper.exs, test/kvtest.exs. Let's take a brief look at those generated files. Note: Mix is an Elixir executable. This means that in order to run Mix, you need to have both Mix and Elixir executables in your path. That's what happens when you install Elixir. Project compilation. A file named mix.exs was generated inside our project folder kv, and its main responsibility is to configure our project. Let's take a look at it. Def module kv.mixProject, use mix.project, then we have a project, application, and deps. App, name of the app, version, Elixir, start permanent, if prod, deps here. Run mix help compile app to learn about applications. Our mix.exs defines two public functions: project, which returns project configuration like the project name and version, and application, which is used to generate an application file. There's also a private function named deps, which is invoked from the project function. That defines our project dependencies. Defining deps as a separate function is not required, but it helps keep the project configuration tidy. Mix also generates a file at lib/kv.ex with a module containing exactly one function called hello. The structure is enough to compile our project. So mix compile. The lib/kv.ex file was compiled. An application manifest named kv.app was generated, and all protocols were consolidated as described in the Getting Started guide. All compilation artifacts, all protocols were consolidated. All compilation artifacts are placed inside the _build directory using the options defined in the mix.exs file. Once the project is compiled, you can start an IEX session inside the project running IEX S flag mix. Running tests. Mix also generated the appropriate structure for running our project tests. Mix projects usually follow the convention of having a filename _test.exs file in the test directory for each file in the lib directory. For this reason, we can already find a test/kv_test.exs corresponding to our lib kv.ex file. It doesn't do much at this point. Def module kv test, use xunit.case, doctest kv, test greets the world, assert kv.hello equals the world atom. It is important to note a couple things. The test file is an Elixir script file, .exs. This is convenient because we don't need to compile test files before running them. We define a test module named kvtest, use xunit.case to inject the testing API, and define a simple test using the test2 macro. Mix also generated a file named testhelper.exs, which is responsible for setting up the test framework. xunit.start. This file will be required by Mix every time before we run our tests. We can run tests with mix test. Notice that by running mix test, Mix has compiled the source files and generated the application manifest once again. This happens because Mix supports multiple environments, which we will discuss later in this chapter. Furthermore, you can see that xunit prints a dot for each successful test and automatically randomizes tests too. Let's make the test fail on purpose and see what happens. Change the assertion in kvtest.exs to the following. Assert kv.hello equals oops. Run mix test again. Notice this time there will be no compilation. For each failure, xunit prints a detailed report containing the test name with the test case, the code that failed, and the values for the left and right side of the equals operator. In the second line of the failure, right below the test name, there is the location where the test was defined. If you copy the test location in full, including the file and line number, and append it to mix test, Mix will load and run just that particular test. This shortcut will be extremely useful as we build our project, allowing us to quickly iterate by running a single test. Finally, the stack trace relates to the failure itself, giving information about the test and often the place the failure was generated from within the source files. Automatic code formatting. One of the files generated by mixnew is .formatter.exs. Elixir ships with a code formatter that is capable of automatically formatting our codebase according to consistent style. The formatter is triggered with the mix format task. The generated .formatter.exs file configures which files should be formatted when mix format runs. To give the formatter a try, change a file in the lib or test directories to include extra spaces or extra new lines, such as def hello, and then run mix format. Most editors provide built-in integration with the formatter, allowing a file to be formatted on save or via a chosen key binding. If you are learning Elixir, editor integration gives you useful and quick feedback when learning the syntax. For companies and teams, we recommend developers to run mix format check formatted on their continuous integration servers, ensuring all current and future code follows the standard. You can learn more about the code formatter by checking the format task documentation or by reading the release announcement for Elixir 1.6, the first version to include the formatter. Environments. Mix provides the concept of environments. They allow a developer to customize compilation and other options for specific scenarios. By default, Mix understands 3 environments: dev, the one in which Mix tasks like compile run by default; test, used by Mix test; prod, the one you will use to run your project in production. The environment applies only to the current project. As we will see in future chapters, any dependency you add to your project will by default run in the prod environment. Customization per environment can be done by accessing the mixenv function in your mix.exs file, which returns the current environment as an atom. That's what we have used in the start permanent options. When true, the start permanent option starts your application in permanent mode, which means the Erlang VM will crash if your application supervision tree shuts down. Notice we don't want this behavior in dev and test because it is useful to keep the VM instance running in those environments for troubleshooting purposes. Mix will default to the dev environment except for the test task, which will default to the test environment. The environment can be changed via the all caps mix_env environment variable. So mixenv prod mix compile. Mix is a build tool, and as such, it is not always expected to be available in production, especially if your team uses explicit build steps. Therefore, it is recommended to access mix.env only in configuration files and inside mix.exs, never in your application code, not in lib. Exploring. There's much more to Mix, and we will continue to explore it as we build our project. A general overview is available on the Mix documentation. Also read the Mix source code here. Keep in mind that you can always invoke the help task to list all available tasks. Mix help. You can get further information about a particular task by invoking mix help and then task. Let's write some code. All right, be right back. Oh no. Wow. It's unfortunate.